Welcome back. Our last episode of the Relay Throw is finally here. There was a little bit of a absence of videos as the spring semester gets busy. Everyone's doing their own thing. We're here. We're doing our what we call season or year recap in review of everything that we've done at center field, and it makes sense to have our editor-in-chief Luke Sassa as the first one to join us. So Luke, thank you for doing this. And we just want to start with how you got to being the editor-in-chief.
Yeah, definitely a long multi-year journey. Really started last fall, coming in as we all do, just as editors with Dan at the time, and the two of us really benefiting from the mentorship of the upperclassmen who were in place and taught us so much of what we know, and really a lot of that benefited us this spring, particularly with the process of creating our magazine. So much of the knowledge that I was lucky enough to pick up last year, I was able to kind of bring into this group because I was the only person who was even involved with that last year. And also with getting a club charter as well, they really got the ball rolling on that. And then, it's just been a steady build up. Really just been kind of learning on the fly this year, and everybody's made my life a lot easier with that.
The club charter was one of the things that you just mentioned. Of all the things that have happened this year, what were you expecting to get done, and were those things accomplished?
I'm really proud of the fact that we got that done because it was bigger than just us and just this current group. There's so many people in the past that put in blood, sweat, and tears for that. Specifically, our former editor-in-chief, Jonathan Canane, and our former deputy editor-in-chief, Ricardo. The two of them just worked so hard last year and came up just a little bit short, but had us set up to really just pick up the pieces and keep moving with that. And it was a long process all year long, a lot of dialogue, but a lot of productive, positive dialogue that I feel like not only ended up with us getting a charter, but also just like a greater foothold as a publication in the Marist community, particularly with the Student Government Association, but also student activities. And it's just been nice to see us integrate as an official club.
Yeah, editor-in-chief I don't think even gives you justice as to how much that you do, because there's a multitude of other things that you're involved with. Maristat, you have another job. What are the things that you do that allow you to have success and manage everything that goes on through your life at school?
I'm lucky and blessed to be a type A person, so if I'm not constantly organized and keeping all my ducks in a row, I get stressed out. So that's kind of like a relief for me, and then luckily that just really benefits me in everything that I do, because I do work 20 hours a week at the Marist Pole. I do run another club, and then it's college, like you want to try and have some semblance of balance, social life, that sort of thing. So it's not easy, but it's learning to rely on the people around you, and just really like divide and conquer and work on things collaboratively, because the more that you take responsibility for, the more you have to get done. And so sometimes it's good to share the wealth and that sort of thing. The biggest thing for us this year is we had so many new people get involved with center field, which is so awesome, but it does create a process of onboarding and just teaching people different skills and stuff like that. And I will say we were able to kind of get that out of the way mostly in the fall, when we also had Dan here to help run the publication. So this spring I felt like it was smooth sailing for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've done a great job leading. Dan obviously did a great job leading in the fall, and both of you working together has been fantastic to watch from not so much a outside perspective, but being with you guys and being in the editors meeting. It's been great. Center field specifically, what are some of the most memorable things this year that you've had?
I think it's, first and foremost, aside from the work that we've done, it's the culture that we foster in here. It really does become a familial atmosphere, and I've kind of been in the unique perspective of experiencing two separate editorial staffs, and to see basically this year essentially an entirely new group of people other than myself and Dan coalesce in the exact same way that last year's group did. That tells me that the culture that we've created here, it's bigger than any one person or any one group. It's we have our core values as just an organization, and that's something that I'm really proud of, and just expanding and trying to make people feel welcome here and that sort of thing. And through that, you get more involvement, more perspectives, and the body of work becomes more multifaceted, particularly in multimedia. The job that our graphics crew, particularly Cara and also Jalen Rizzo, did for us this year, along with some others who helped out, was just incredible, where it kind of became the norm, where for any content that's going to go up. There's an expectation. There's going to be graphics to go along with this. That was not the case in any year prior to this one. It was just, let's get a photo for it and call it a day. So that was tremendous. That was a huge goal of Dan and mine's to have that come to fruition. And it did, and I can't take credit for any of that. That's all the people who worked so hard for that. Same thing with our video content too. Ty Sanders, our videographer, did a tremendous job. Our main goal when we brought her on board was to really help humanize our writers and our staff to people who review our content on social media, and she did a lot of that with the interactive videos that we produced. So that was all really exciting to see come to fruition.
Yeah. Are there any stories for you specifically that you were most proud of writing this year?
Definitely. I mean, obviously, the one that I'm most proud of writing was my op-ed after we got chartered as a club, because I felt like that was a necessary recap of just the journey for Centerfield as an organization, and just had so many people reaching out to me after that, alumni, people who are part of it currently, people from Marist Athletics, faculty, but also friends and family, just people in my life personally that know about what this journey has been, both for me and for the club. So I'm super proud of that. But then I also really loved doing the Beyond the Lines column this year, taking that over for Ricardo, and just kind of getting to look at stories from more of the perspective of the off the field of sports, and what does it actually mean to be an athlete? What's the work that goes into it? What are the challenges that you're presented with? And how do, and we even did for the first time group stories for that as well, with an entire club team and club soccer and everything that went on with their season. So I'm happy with how that turned out.
Going into what will be your final semester in the winter or in the fall, what can Centerfield look forward to for that final semester that you're here?
I'm really grateful that I get more than just 1 year in the big chair, because now I feel settled in, and I think in particular with Dan and I both being present to run it in the fall, having Marley as our managing editor and you as our assistant managing editor to handle all of the contacts and stuff like that, that's going to really free up Dan and I to take on, more of a general leadership role and not have to worry so much about logistics, but instead be able to worry about fully implementing things that we've started this year. The biggest one is, we've always had our editors meetings on Monday and our general meetings on Wednesday, but now we're also gonna have our first ever multimedia meetings on Tuesday, and we brought on a whole separate staff of videographers and graphic designers, and that's just gonna allow us to really expand, because this year is kind of the starting point for that. So that's what I'm most excited about, and kind of just working particularly with Jalen to kind of get that set up next fall is really my main focus before I leave.
Yeah, I think this is why we did the podcast as just us instead of trying to find someone else to get back on as our last one, because everyone sees the stories go up, but no one really knows how it's all done. And I think you obviously just gave some great perspective as to how it's done. We have our editors meetings. Next year we're going to have multimedia meetings. So that's kind of an inside look as to how everything gets done. Luke, appreciate you joining us, and we'll call someone up next.
Thank you so much.
We are now joined with Ben Leeds. You may know him from the volleyball court, but believe it or not, he actually does write as well. Ben, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
And I think the most interesting part about Ben is that he is one of the younger people within our editor's team, if not are you the youngest or?
Not quite the youngest,
okay,
but close.
But very close. Most of us are juniors and seniors, but Ben is one of the few sophomores that snuck their way in. So being younger and being able to learn from everyone else, what are the things that you've taken away from the older people in the group?
I'd say mostly the work ethic, because from afar it just looks like, oh, you're writing stories and editing, you're just looking it over, but kind of getting into a more heightened role, it's been a lot more work than I thought when I originally joined, but obviously I enjoy it, and I wouldn't say no to that going back if I could change it. But just being more attentive to detail and talking to people more, just trying to help them through things. If it's a more inexperienced writer, it's just a lot more work than I thought, but I've loved every second of it.
And what are the things that you've done specifically within Centerfield? What are the things that you've written about, and what are your favorite parts of writing?
My favorite parts of writing, just to answer that quick, is I love the interviewing aspect, just being able to talk to someone, whether it's for a feature story or after a game, or just kind of having a person-to-person chat, and it could just be a few minutes, and being able to turn that into, say, a 1,000-word story, and kind of diving into what they tell you and using what you know, what they say to make a well-rounded story. But yeah, so I started with the volleyball beat in the fall. I was kind of thrown into the fire there because, I mean, literally right when we got back. But I didn't have too much writing experience at that point, and I thought I did well. And since then, with the classes I've taken and the writing I've done, I feel like I'm a lot more well-rounded. So for next fall, I'm really excited for that, to kind of put those skills to the test in the
Most improved player season for Ben, almost like Jalen Brunson. How far are the Knicks going this year?
I gotta be careful because I don't want to say something that I'm gonna regret.
Yeah, we'll have
when
their
this gets
seeds.
posted.
We'll see.
But probably win the championship.
Yep,
Probably.
I doubt it.
Take it game by game, have some fun.
Both Cara and Ben have made egregious predictions. Anyway, but listen, love the confidence in their teams. Ben, I think one of the cool things about you as a writer is your creativity. You're able to find different stories and then dive into them. You've done the deep dive of the MAC preseason poll, but you've also come up with plenty of other ideas that are good for our paper wall back there. Where do those ideas come about?
It's hard to just pick one spot and one avenue. Like the Boys in the Boat story in the magazine, I was watching the movie, they said Poughkeepsie, and I'm like, whoa. I did a double take, I'm like, could this be something? Like, just always thinking of, is this a story that people want to hear? Is this something that is rare or interesting that isn't seen before? Like, one feature that I was proud of was there's 2 girls on the volleyball team with older siblings who played here. I was just randomly looking at old rosters and like, that's the same name, like, they're here. And so that one it wasn't really a story at first because it was like, oh, they just had siblings here, but you get to talking to people, talk to them, talk to their siblings, talk to the coaches, and just kind of getting to know more about them as people, and then working that into the story. But I kind of went on a tangent there. But to answer your question,
it's just a journalistic mindset.
Yeah.
What?
But just finding something small that you can kind of project into something bigger and a full story rather than just, oh, this happened on campus, oh, this happened in a game.
Absolutely. What are the things that you find to help you within your writing that are able to go from, oh, this happened, to, oh, this is a story?
I think that all the credit goes to whoever's editing, because you can have this interview with someone, talk to people, and you know everything. You were there for the interview, you've done the research, but you're not writing the story for you. You're writing the story for the reader, and the reader is the one who needs to learn from it and understand it. So sometimes I've overwritten, underwritten, and then whoever's editing me will kind of reel me in and be like, does this matter, or can you expand on this more? I don't understand. So that's kind of where that comes from, just listening to people's feedback and how you can take that and make yourself a better writer and write a better story.
You were talking about your goals and aspirations for next year. What are the things, center field as a whole, that you're hoping come about or continue to improve on for next year?
I know we're a publication and it's all about writing stories, but I've loved kind of the more personable content we've done, because I mean, in our editors meetings and in our general meetings, it's a fun atmosphere. We keep it professional, but at times we're having fun, and it's a good way to meet people. I mean, at college, it's tough when you're first getting here, and this club has given me a lot of awesome friends and just great people that I've worked with. And it's important to highlight that because we're always looking for new members, and we're not saying like, oh, you have to come in here and write. Like, you can come in here and have fun, have a good time, and get to know some cool people.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about the personable stuff, I think you were the first person to practice with the volleyball team, which is what I alluded to before. What was that experience like? And I know we were trying to get a bunch of people to do it. It didn't all work out, but you did get yours done. So for the future, would you want to do another practice with them, and how did that practice go?
I would 100% do it again. It was so much fun. I played in high school, so I had some previous experience, so I wasn't like so
Roll the highlight tape.
Yeah. But stepping out on the court, I was so like, oh my God, what am I doing? What am I getting myself into? And then it took me a few places to settle in. It was a lot of fun, but I mean, the credit goes down with the race walking feature and him getting dusted. But roll that clip.
Yeah, that was embarrassing.
When he
Some say that's why I went to Italy.
Yeah. couldn't be here when that dropped. But when that came about and he talked about doing that, I'm like, hey, I should practice for the volleyball team.
Mm-hmm.
That was during their season. I knew I wasn't gonna do it when they had more important stuff to practice. But I kind of always had in the back of my mind, like, this would make for a funny video and kind of help our relationship with the athletic department and say, like, we can work together on something that is appealing to us, appealing to the players, appealing to their families, just anyone in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Ben continues to appeal to everyone. He is I would say we're grooming him to be next editor-in-chief, and he's done great so far, continues to be great, and look out for his most improved. Obviously, smash the whatever, plus probably like 125 on all the sports books. Ben leads everyone.
Thank you.
Back now with Cara Lacey, our director of graphics and designs. Cara, you started obviously as a graphics person, but when did that really begin? It didn't begin during center field. Obviously, you had some experience before that. So how did that all start?
So I interviewed with Luke, Jared, and Dan at the end of last spring semester, so my freshman year. And when I went, I showed them like a portfolio of stuff I've done before. Like in high school, I ran a bunch of different social media accounts for like sports teams at my high school. And I also was into sports photography, so I like got an opportunity to shadow with an Islanders photographer my freshman year last year, and I showed them like pictures that I took there.
That's pretty cool, especially as an Islanders fan. They're currently fighting to stay alive in the playoffs. How many more games do you give them?
They're going all the way.
Okay.
No,
By the time this is out, that's probably not true, but we'll see.
you have to have faith.
Yeah, absolutely. As one of the backbones, I think, to social media, how do you think that engagement is easiest to come by for a publication like Center Field?
I think it's really just getting people interested in stories that are behind the sport. Like, we don't just do gamers. There's stories about the athletes and what they do off the field, and I think that's really where most of the interest comes.
When you're about to design something, what goes into that entire process?
Well, I like to look, for me personally, I like to look at what other like professional teams have done for like different types of graphics, like the all Marist graphics or like a feature graphic, and kind of go on what's like popular and trending.
For sure. Working with everyone within the graphics department, obviously we mentioned, or Luke mentioned, Jalen and Ty helps a little bit, and then we have a bunch of other people who aren't on the department, so to speak, but they do graphics with you. How is first managing all of them and trying to figure out who's taking what graphic on what day? How does that work? And then also being able to collaborate with them and share different ideas as to what looks good, what doesn't look good, and then all of that.
Well, me and Jalen worked really closely this year, and I think it was nice because both of us were like willing to take on as much as we could. And working with her, like we would text on the side all the time or after editors meetings on Monday, and we would kind of just go over like each other's layouts that we had on Photoshop. Like we both had different styles, but like her style kind of stayed the same throughout the year, and I think mine as well, which like looked nicely, and we used the same colors, like the Marist colors, so I think that helped. And when it came to like giving other people graphics, like it would start with like a game score and then like work their way up to a feature. Yeah,
absolutely. And now obviously we have the magazine. That's our biggest project of the year, and you being tasked with that, how did that make you feel?
Honored, obviously, and the magazine was so good last year, I thought. I really liked it. Like, I even took inspo from the one last year to make that collage on the back cover because I think it encapsulates the whole year in the magazine perfectly. I know me and Jalen like wanted to go for like a clean, like modern, simple look for the magazine, so that was like really nice that we both were able to agree on like what the look we wanted to go for.
Yeah, I think it came out phenomenally, and now obviously we have it. We've been putting them out in front of the lobby of LT, McCann, and we've seen a bunch of them go, which is, I think, something that you would be super proud of, and all of us obviously super proud of. But not only were you in the creativity department, you started writing a little bit. Was that something that you always thought would happen, or did that come along just kind of out of the blue?
I kind of always liked writing, but I never really got into like gamer, like specific writing. I shadowed Luke last year, but it didn't really go anywhere. But I really did enjoy like getting more involved on the writing side and like editing and stuff.
and then covering a sport that did you have any prior knowledge of water polo?
I did not.
So how did that go?
It was good. I did a lot of my gamers or like recaps like through live stats,
Yeah.
but I was able to go to a home game, and it was really interesting to like see it live because like obviously it's so like it seems so slow moving when you're looking at the live stats, but like in person it's a really fast game.
Yeah, absolutely. And now you're one of our do-it-all people. You can do a graphic, you can write a gamer, you can edit, pretty much anything that needs to be done, Cara can do. I do have to forgive you for getting Debo injured in the Super Bowl, but outside of that, you've been fantastic. So, Cara, thank you for joining us, and we'll call up our next person.
Thank you.
I'm back with Danny Dessler. Danny is our managing editor. He takes care of all the schedules, does all the stuff with the SIDs and athletics. So I guess I'll start with, what is your relationship with everyone within athletics like?
So I started working for athletics my sophomore year, and I really became close with them on a personal level and a professional level, and I really think that helped me blend my relationship with them as the managing editor, as well as I set up all the interviews with the help of Marley and Luke as well. So yeah.
Taking on that role, it somewhat makes you have to focus on other people rather than focusing on what you have to do. What are the struggles to that, and then how do you overcome those?
Luke can attest to that. Yeah, the struggles, I mean, a lot of the times I wouldn't really focus on my own work. I'd focus on how can I schedule this interview with so-and-so. But I started out as the assistant managing editor, so I think that really helped me create a stepping stone to be the managing editor.
Mm-hmm. Who was it that you learned from last year?
Luke Sassa.
There you go.
I learned from Luke Sassa. I don't think he sleeps. I think he just edits and writes 24 hours a day. But yeah, Luke, I appreciate your help with that.
And then that obviously, I wouldn't say led to, but it definitely helped get some experience in the outside world. If you want to talk a little bit about that, go ahead.
Yeah, so right now I'm interning at Yes Network in their communications department, and just learning like the insides and outs of a network. Luke can attest to this as well. It's just so different and so cool, especially as a fan of the team. It's really cool to see how the inner workings of a company works like that.
Was there anything within center field that helped you when you were going through all that at Yes?
Yeah, so right now I'm in their PR department, and PR and journalism, you really need, companies really like when you're able to write now. And I think it's a very underrated element in the program as well. So I think that just having the ability to write really sets you apart from other people.
Mm-hmm. So now, being a senior, and you've been in this program since it was pretty much your freshman year. Obviously, there were no sports freshman year, but you've been a key part of everything that's gone on since then. What have you seen in terms of growth since when you first were here and now all the way to your senior year?
I mean, yeah, it really starts with the magazine. I mean, this is our second or third year doing the magazine, and I think that when I started my sophomore year, I wasn't really involved with like the inner workings of it, but just to see the growth of how every year different writers, especially the younger writers, they come and they shadow a little bit and they start writing, and then they get really good at writing. I believe that's what happened to me. I shadowed once, and then now I have my third year completed as a men's lacrosse beat writer, and I think that just to see the growth of especially myself and other writers was just really important as well.
For this year specifically, are there any stories that you're most proud of?
Yeah, the Sean Salato piece was just really awesome. I mean, me and the gang went to Atlantic City, and just to meet him there, just to connect with him, and basically just to get his phone number and be like, hey, I want to write this piece on you. It was a piece that I really wanted to do during the winter, and then seeing Sean in Atlantic City really helped. So I appreciate Sean for all the help, and it did really well on the site as well. And it was probably one of my most proudest and my last feature pieces with center field.
Yeah, we were definitely talking about that in the winter, and that was when all of his hype was at like its peak. So we were all kind of discussing, is it a good time to reach out to him because he's probably not going to get back to us? And then it all worked itself out when you saw him at Atlantic City during the MAC tournament, and you also got a little bit of in-camera experience when you were working in collaboration with the Red Fox Report. What was that like for the MAC basketball tournament?
Yeah, so that was really a lot of fun. I want to thank Jimmy for his help with that. The editing was just like really quick. It went out within probably like 20 minutes of the shooting and the editing, which was really cool to see. as well. But it was a lot of planning as well. We did the podcast, Ben and I, with the MAC commissioner, which I really think turned out well. Saw him on Saturday at the men's cross game. He was thanking me for asking him to do that, and it was just a really, really great time with a really great group of people in Atlantic City.
Another great group of people is the alumni that we've had come through and now get out of center field. You are now going to become an alumni, and I think it's interesting to see like Kanane, Jared, Ricardo, everyone within our alumni group continues to support us. You always see them liking our posts, commenting on our posts. Not that likes and comments mean everything, but they definitely stay in touch. I know Jimmy, a lot of people from the Red Fox Network stay in touch with him. So for you, what are the things that you would want to do or hope to do when you get out of Marist and go into the real world, but continue to stay connected with Marist?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm definitely going to stay involved and see what you guys do, see what you guys put out. But I think that there's only so many people in the Marist Sports Gun department who are in center field, and I feel like we have such a tight-knit group of people. The guys that have graduated 3 years ago, 4 years ago, still check out our work, which is awesome. And the center field at LMU Network Pipeline is real as well. Yeah. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see what you guys do, end up doing next year and years to come.
Yeah. Danny Dessler, the boy, dog, on to the next. All right, now we have Sam Murphy, the all-pro journalist, being that he's part of center field as well as the editor-in-chief at the Marist Circle. So everything that there is to do for journalism within Marist, Sam's pretty much the guy. And with that being said, what is the relationship between the Marist Circle and center field like?
Well, first, thank you for having me.
Of course.
The relationship between center field and the circle has definitely grown a lot, especially this year. I believe I am the first person to hold an editorial role with both publications at the same time, which is something I'm of course very proud of. Center field has always, or since it started, has really grown a lot, and so I think incorporating it with the circle is really important. We always the back pages, just like any good paper, is the sports pages. Thanks to Luke, we did a collaborative post on Instagram, so the connection between the two publications is growing.
And you would think, or one would think, I guess, that you would get tired of writing and editing as the editor-in-chief at the Marist Circle, but instead you continue to write with center field.
Yes.
I guess the question is, it's pretty point blank, why is that?
Why do I keep writing?
For center field.
Yeah. Well, I love sports. I can't deny that. I do love sports. I would say just because of the way things shaked out with COVID and how my time here at Marist went, I got more involved with the circle, so I got an editorial role with that. So that kind of became my thing, but I always came to the meetings for center field, wrote a couple feature stories before. And then this year, when Luke and Dan asked me to be part of the board, I got more involved. I took on the women's soccer beat. So kind of from the jump, I was writing a lot for center field and kind of stuck with it as best as I could throughout the year. I've picked up on the baseball beat for the spring here, a little more of an editor, kind of more on the editing side of things, but it's a lot of fun. I mean, writing about sports is fun.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to, because you just said you were an editor now for the baseball thing, and I know that you're mentoring people. I'm assuming you have to mentor people and teach people how to write the correct way for the Marist Circle as well.
Yeah.
How do you mentor younger writers and try to form them into good writers?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. It's not easy. I think some people, it depends on what you're writing about, which this goes for, general journalism stuff, sports journalism. A lot of people maybe will be a good writer, but don't either know journalism style, so you have to help them with that, like be more concise or whatever. Some people maybe know the sport, but aren't as good at writing, so there's usually it's a give and a take, and you kind of have to show people like, okay, you did this well, but you want to look out for this, you missed this, but you got this, so compliment sandwiches, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, exactly. What for you was the most proud moment, I guess, either this year or throughout your center field career that you've had so far?
I think this whole year for center field, I've been really proud of just everyone and how much content we've put out. I think obviously we're kind of setting the standard, but there is a lot to the fact that we go to just about every game.
Yep.
We cover just about everything that happens with the D1 teams within reason, and obviously now we're talking a lot about the club teams. So I think just the volume of what we do is really great, and I'm very proud to see that and hope that continues, because we are kind of setting that as the standard. Like, there's no reason we can't do that.
Yeah, having a different perspective with the circle, how do you think we can make that continue and make center field more popular across campus and within the Marist community?
Well, I think we're already off to a great start. I think social media is absolutely the key to that, because obviously with the circle, with us being based on using the print format, people can walk by the newsstand and they see that. But people don't walk by a newsstand and see, Jimmy's lacrosse gamer or Luke's soccer gamer or whatever it may be. So social media is obviously a very big deal in general. I think the magazine hopefully will help. I think that's obviously something really cool that we get to do that. So I think just being consistent and, just telling everyone, like, hey, because people talk about stuff. So if someone's talking about what's going on with the basketball team, oh, well, Luke just wrote about that, or Aidan just wrote about that. Go like our TikTok to find out, what this random group of people wants to bring on a deserted island, or whatever the question was.
Yeah.
So I think stuff like that, just being relatable to college kids is important.
Yeah, so now being that you're a senior, where do you see yourself going? Is it in the sports realm, or is it strictly a journalist route?
It's gonna be a mix of both. I'm not totally sure what it's gonna be yet. I'm still nailing down my plans for the future, but I definitely see myself something journalism, news, communications, whether that's sports or not.
Yep.
I'd be lying if I said sports wasn't really the end goal, just because I love sports,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm willing to do whatever.
Yeah, so for this year, is there a story that you would like to highlight from yourself that you've written?
That is a good question. I think I did a bunch of features, especially in the fall, for center field. One of them, which is in the magazine, is about the walk-ons to the rowing team. I think it was an interesting story. I talked to a couple of people who walked on, and whether it was because they did it in high school or they did a different sport, but weren't going to play D1, soccer or whatever it was here, and kind of how it seems like such a niche sport, but they literally will take anyone, especially if you're tall, they're going to flag you down or whatever it is. So I thought that was really cool to kind of learn about that, and I guess provide some answers to something that I saw and was like, I wonder what's going on there.
What to you makes an interesting story?
Well, I think that's kind of part of it, is like you yourself or other people just being like, oh, I wonder about that. Like there has to be a reason to write about stuff. Obviously, some things are going to be a more obvious story topic than others, but I think as long as there are people that want an answer to that question, or that there is something interesting, if it's a personal profile, whatever, I think as long as there's something that will engage the reader, that makes a good story.
Yeah, Sam obviously created plenty of stories that were fantastic and answered plenty of people's questions, I'm sure. Sam, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Best of luck in the future.
Thank you.
On to the next. All right, here with Jimmy Shantoulis, quite the last name. Shout out the Greeks. Jimmy, thank you for joining us, obviously putting this whole podcast together. This is the man who is editing this whole thing together. And you're like Cara, a do-it-all type of guy. You're able to edit, produce video content, write gamers, write features. You do all of it. Where does all of that passion for sports come from?
Just when I was a little kid, I've always wanted to work in sports. When I was younger, I always wanted to, play sports professionally. I feel like that a lot of kids can say that they wanted to do that. But once that I found out that was, not very attainable, I decided to shift my focus to working in sports in any kind of avenue. I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I came here.
Yep.
I was very much like, I wanted to be in front of the camera. I wanted to be the next, Joe Buck.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wanted to be that guy
Here
on
you
camera. But, hey, here I am. But I mean, it's like, then again, it's like I understood that was going to be a very, hard process. I understood that there was a lot that really went into it, and I decided, maybe I should shift my focus to behind the scenes, and I give all the credit to, my upperclassmen, the former alums, Matt Spirio and Zach Musso. They really, guided me in the direction that I am today. They've molded me into, the video producer and the content editor that I am today. So I give all that praise to them, and I also give praise to Professor Chris Riviezo. He on top of that, he molded me into what I am. Working hand in hand with him on the Red Fox Report, it's been an unforgettable experience.
What specifically are the things that those three did for you to help you grow into who you are now?
Yeah, so coming into college, I had no video editing experience. I had no, graphic experience. I had none of that. So I came in as a completely blank slate. Matt, one day during a Red Fox Report meeting last year, he took me under his wing. He taught me how to edit, very briefly, as well as another upperclassman, Rob DeFelice. Both of them, they've helped me, hone in my editing skills. And after that, I was just kind of off to the races. Ever since I've been, very self-taught. I've been very reliant on myself. If I have an issue, I'm going to go and figure out how to do it. So I give all the credit to them as well. But then also at the same time, I didn't really have as much of leadership experience until I really took over for the Red Fox Report. And again, I give Matt and Zach all the credit in the world. They've molded me into the leader that I am today as well. People like to say that I am Mr. Sports Com. So, I can't, I know I keep saying it, but I can't give them enough credit for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And on top of all that, you're here in the editor's room every Monday, at the regular meetings every Wednesday. What are the things that maybe writing has that video does not?
That's a great question. It's right off the bat, I feel like writing is a little bit more personable just because you're in the field, you're asking all these athletes or these coaches these questions, then you're really molding it into this type of storyline. Whereas I feel like that you could potentially do that with video as well. But at the same time, it's you're using your own personal writing style to tell that story. It's very much you're doing all that investigative work on your own, whereas video, it's you can definitely reach out and grab some things on the internet that you see. It's give you a little bit of framework, whereas with writing, it's it has to come from you. You can of course read other people's work, but again, you don't want to be caught plagiarizing or anything.
Yeah, of course.
So at the end of the day, it's all from your own brain. You're doing it, all on your own with a little bit of help, but that's where I feel like that writing and video, kind of differ.
Yeah, absolutely. How are you able to balance, because you are Mr. Sportscom, balance all of the things that you do, and then on top of that you have school and social life like Luke touched on earlier? How are you able to balance all of that?
It's tough. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's I have a lot of sleepless nights, I will say, just because I'm up very late, whether it be editing video, doing homework, writing for Center Field. I maybe not wrote a lot for Center Field as I had wanted to, but that's also just because there were so many conflictions with Red Fox Report and everything else. But again, I'm still doing as much as I can. I covered the women's lacrosse team, so that was definitely something that I also had to balance out with, shooting Red Fox Report and doing all this other stuff as well. So it's a very tough balance, but I feel like that I've been very capable of managing my time as well as possible. I'm not behind on any assignments. I've been very much on top of my deadlines, which our professors and our upperclassmen have honed into us that sports is on a rigid deadline basis. So you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. So you have to balance your time as best you can, and you have to produce as good of content as you possibly can as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. The deadlines are very, very necessary, and I know you have done such a good job so far of being on top of everything. And like you were talking about the sleepless nights, the videos that you're producing are not 10-second videos. There are a lot of long form things that you have to put together. What goes into editing all of that and a podcast like this?
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it because, of course, at the most basic level, you have to shoot all of this. You have to make sure that everything is up to speed, whether all of your cameras are good to go, all the audio is recording properly, and then once even that's done, then it's even into just the actual shooting of the video itself. Once you're done with that, you compile all that footage onto a hard drive, you load that up into Premiere Pro, and then you get to work. And editing video is such a time-consuming process just because you have to make sure that everything is just perfect.
Yeah.
You know, cutting out unnecessary audio, cutting out unnecessary video, making sure that, you know, you can add clips in that, you know, make sense and are very relevant. And then also, like, if you want to get a little creative with it, it's like you can do a lot more, you know, like video tracking and stuff like that. That takes a lot of time too. There was a video that I did after I went to Notre Dame. I compiled it into a massive video, and I took some video of the game itself, and I wanted to, you know, make it look like that I was tracking the play with my camera perfectly.
Right.
And you have to do what's called keyframing, and that is so time consuming. You have to, you know, add a keyframe on a specific clip, go a couple of frames, add another one, drag it across, and it's like, it takes so long, but once you're done with it, it makes it look so much better. And I've done so many things like that to this point where I am very proud of the content that I produce. I can only get better, 100%, but I'm very proud of what I've been able to do so far, and I'm only excited to see what I'm able to do in the near future.
Yeah, I would imagine even as you're talking, you're thinking about what are the things as you speak, what you can put into the podcast that'll make sense to overlay when you're talking. You said you were proud of a bunch of things from the Red Fox Report, like you should be. Are there any articles that you've written or stories that you've written so far for Center Field that you're most proud of?
Yeah, my first feature article was about the Marist cheer team, and honestly, like, I feel like that's my best one so far. Granted, I don't have as much of a sample size as some of you other guys do, but I've been, you know, so ingrained in the cheerleading world my entire life. You know, my sisters all did cheerleading their entire lives. My girlfriend did cheerleading her entire life. So it's like I've been so tightly ingrained in that. So it was something that I could relate to those athletes on like on a first level basis.
Yep.
So being able to, you know, go and talk to those captains, write that story, I'm very proud of that. Like, it was, I didn't have too much writing experience coming into college, so when it was my first time writing for Center Field, I was like, I wanted to do it because it's something that I knew, it's something that I enjoyed, and that only took me away to where I am now. It's like I wrote another feature about former women's basketball head coach Brian Georges, you know, giving the keys over to now head coach Aaron Dowdy. And then, of course, I've done stuff with women's lacrosse. I did gamers for all of their sports, but I have I have a feature that's in the works right now talking about the women's basketball practice team, and I feel like that's going to be my best one. Just because of how much I've grown as a writer, that I feel like that I'm going to be able to form that into my best one. So stay tuned for that.
There you go. That's a good plug. What are the things that everyone within the editor's room allow you to do that make you feel comfortable? Because, like you said, you don't have as many pieces of writing, but I mean, obviously a little bit biased because I'm in the room, but everyone treats you as though you're on the same level, which you are, as everyone else, despite not having as many pieces written. What are the things that they do to make you feel comfortable?
They don't, like, harass me as funnily enough as I'm going to say, but honestly, it's like, I'm not like, they don't expect me to, you know, churn out as nearly as much writing as the rest of you guys do, because they understand how much I've been able to do with everything else, with all the video that I'm doing, with just everything, like how involved I am with all aspects of sports comm here at Marist. It's like just having me as a part of the editor's room, they understand that having that, you know, connection between us, that's just only going to make us stronger. So of course I've always wanted it. I'm always I always want to, you know, help as much as I can. I've very much been like, I want to do as much as I can for Center Field because I love being a part of it. We're a very tight-knit group. We're family. So being able to, you know, help any way that I can, I'm all for it. But when it comes to the editors meetings, it's like, I do what I do, they understand what I'm doing, and we get along perfectly. It's a great relationship, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. Jimmy, going to continue to do what he does. Mr. Sportscom is here for one last rodeo next year. Jimmy, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Aidan.
So this is fun. I get to switch roles a little bit and now ask Aidan some questions. Used to you always playing host. But yeah, so just to start off, tell us a little bit about how you became an editor here and what that process was like.
Well, I think personally I could have, like yourself, have gotten into the editing role a little bit earlier, and that's no fault but my own. Especially for all the freshmen and young lower class people that are within Marist. Like, I always stress it all the time, and it sounds like I'm being a little bit of an ass when I say it, like especially at the beginning of the year. You need to get involved, otherwise you're just gonna float away and nothing's ever gonna happen. I know personally I've gotten a few freshmen involved, Mike and Max, because they're on my club baseball team, and it takes a push from someone, so I'm the one that's willing to do the pushing, because in freshman year I would sit back in that corner, not say anything, just walk in and walk out of the meetings, and I didn't ultimately end up writing anything that year, and I was just spending 30 minutes to an hour sitting over there listening to everyone else, which was very interesting to listen to them, but there was no experience that I was gaining. So you have to put yourself out there no matter how daunting it may be. But sophomore year, I got my first feature with Ratchford as the new coach. I interviewed him. He was a good interview. Talked about his family and coming back to Marist, which I thought was an interesting part of that story. And then Jacob Ephraimian decided that he didn't want us to cover some of the non-conference games, which at the time I didn't know, like, non-conference games don't mean as much, but he gave those softball gamers to me. There were some interesting things that happened in those softball games, which is really cool. I enjoy being able to tell stories about memorable events, and obviously not every game is going to be memorable, but the ones that are, you got to make them good, paint a picture for everything that happened. That way, I feel the athletes or the families of the athletes are able to have something to look back on and be able to go back and say, oh yeah, that did happen, and be able to think back as to what happened by reading what you wrote. So I did those, and then I think this year I was asked by you and Dan if I wanted to, or maybe last year, like at the end of the year, if I was wanting to join as an editor, and obviously I was super excited to do it. And I'm very grateful that you guys asked me to do it, and I just think since then, I think definitely suggesting the all Marist teams at the end of the year helped, because everyone kind of was like, oh, he has an idea, he finally spoke. But yeah, suggesting that, and obviously it didn't happen last year. We've made sure that happened this year. I've made sure, I guess. Yeah, I think contributing, standing up and speaking out, that's all led me to where I am now.
Two things you mentioned that I kind of want to hit on a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
First, just being, bringing on people that maybe haven't been involved right away, but you kind of see something in them and want to help them out. It resonates with us because we've been on both sides of it now.
Mm-hmm.
We've been the person who needed a little bit of an arm around the shoulder, a little bit of a nudge to get involved more. And then now we've also, had the privilege to be the person to reach out to people that we see have some potential, bring them in, show them the ropes, and get them started. So now that you've been on both sides of it, just what are your main takeaways from that process?
I think takeaway is to step back, especially where I am now. Like, it's very easy to just expect so much of so many people because you've grown as a person, but it's also important to remember, like, not everyone is in the same spot as you, so you have to step back and be able to realize that that little kid in the corner was you at one point, and obviously not a little kid, but younger guy or younger girl, which I also harped on at the beginning of the year, and I'm glad that we have more of a female, I wouldn't say staff, but more female members within center field. I think that's very important. And I think just being able to step back and realize that not everyone's going to be comfortable, and just know that, like, you are in that spot too, so don't expect anyone to move forward. And I just want someone, like, if I'm in a difficult spot, to be there for me, and I try to be there for anyone else who's in a difficult spot. And being in a difficult spot isn't like, there's obviously much worse things that could be going on than not being able to speak up, but the time that you do speak up, it can lead to things like this. Now being able to do what I do, and a lot of my friends are really excited about what I am able to do, and I'm excited to share with them what I'm able to do, and I want other people to be able to feel that way. So I think that's the main takeaway, is being able to realize that some people, I mean, they were in the same spot as you, so just step back. You're not perfect, either are they, and take them under your wing as much as you can.
Another thing I wanted to hit on that you brought up before is the process of coming up with ideas. I'll be the first to admit I'm not the most creative person by any means. I'm more of a doer, but when it comes to
going on in your brain.
When it comes to coming up with ideas, sometimes it's a bit of a struggle for me. So I was really lucky this year to lean on people like you and Ben, who just literally seem to have ideas just constantly percolating that you guys are willing to propose. So, we already spoke with Ben earlier about that, but what does that process look like for you when you're trying to brainstorm new things to pitch to the group.
Yeah, when Cara was talking about how she uses professional sports teams and all of that as inspirations for her graphics, I think the same thing happens when I'm thinking of an idea for journalism. As long as I know everyone follows the sports, but if you continue to have just like I'm very one-dimensional, and my family always makes fun of me for it. All I really do is play sports, read about sports, watch sports, consume sports. That's pretty much my life. So being that I do that, I'm able to find ideas from maybe a professional league and somehow make it into a more Marist-centric thing, like the all Marist teams. I know I got that because we have the all NBA teams, and I thought, oh, we can do that for center field. By just calling it the All Marist teams, it gives a spotlight on a bunch of the players here, and I think it helps us because, as much as I hate to say it, story shares and all that are very important to our growth. So when a player sees their name on something, they're more likely to share it for good reason. And we're writing about them because they deserve it, and if they decide to share it, that's great for them and it's great for us. I think it's a win-win all the way around. So that, and then I don't know, sometimes I just there's not much going on up here, but eventually, like, you know, every blind squirrel finds a nut, and sometimes that just happens. I'll find something random going on and say, oh, that's probably a pretty good idea, bring it up, and some people like it, and then we just run with it. Obviously some of my ideas like need tweaks, but I think the basis of the idea, it starts there, and then that's it.
Last thing I wanted to ask you about was just, you know, what experiences have stood out to you the most this year? You know, I remember you had a great series back in November, captain's pieces that you had written for us, highlighting particularly for all the different fall sports teams, you know, the different captains on each team and what that meant, and then also just doing the softball beat and hosting so many of our podcasts. So just speak a little bit about your experiences.
Yeah, all of that has been super cool. I'm able to actually say, hey, look, Mom, I'm spending your money well with tuition. But seriously, like, I don't know, just being in this spot, sports, like Jimmy said, is what I wanted to do. I wanted to play baseball when I was younger, and I still technically play it, going to playoffs.
Club
Shout
baseball
out
over
baseball.
here.
We'll have a story on that soon, I'm sure.
Hopefully.
Another plug like Jimmy. But no, yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to be in sports my whole life. So now that I have an opportunity to do it, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I succeed. Because my parents didn't have to let me take a route that no one else in my family has taken. Like, it's obviously a risk. No one knows what's going to happen in the sports business or in the sports industry. And I could have very easily gone into like business and done what my dad did as a salesman, but I didn't want to go that route. I wanted to do something for myself, and I'm glad they allowed me to do that. I think for memorable experiences this year, I am very happy with the softball team allowing me to be at the games and being very, I guess, friendly. Joe's been awesome to me. The players have been great. They all are willing to talk to me after the games. And I think also just the relationships I've grown with athletics, because I do intern with the Red Fox Network. Them taking me in and like being, I wouldn't say a friend, but they definitely are a peer to me, and they always are super nice. They trust me, which is very important in any role. I think them trusting me and allowing me to do what I think I do best, which is tell stories and just contribute valuable and helpful production with any realm. It could be camera, replay, I'm okay at that, and even writing, obviously. Yeah, I think the memorable experiences are just the people that I've met along the way, especially in this room. It's been great.
Alrighty, there you have it, Aidan Lavin. Alrighty, so now we're here with next fall's leadership team here at Center Field. Once again, I'm Luke, one of our co-editor-in-chiefs. We have Dan, who's our other co-editor-in-chief, and then Marley, who's going to be our new managing editor in the fall, taking over for Danny, who did a great job. So I guess, Marley, I just wanted to start with you. How does it feel to officially be joining the executive leadership team of Center Field?
It feels great. I'm very appreciative of you two bringing me on. My spot in center field grew so quickly over time. It's a bit surprising to me, and I'm so happy that I've been able to be a part of center field in the way that I have. And now, for next fall, being the managing editor, being one of the liaison between the writers and Marist Athletics for setting up interviews, and I'm excited to be part of that. Make sure everybody can get their interviews so that we can continue to produce the content and the stories that we have so far in my time here.
And then just, as the assistant managing editor this past spring, you worked with Danny and kind of helped him out in that role. So what was that like? What did you learn from him?
I learned a lot from Danny. A lot of it is just about being consistent and being persistent so that we can get the interviews we need, because there are a lot of stories on campus that we like to write and that we find interesting. And I also learned from him patience too, because contacting the SIDs, they're already working around the clock on their own. So getting us, setting interviews up for us is not like their first priority. So it's just about being patient and being professional too. There's no reason to, be upset because no one responded to your email or your text. You just have to continue following up, because they're not going to see every email or every text within, a day or so. So it's just about being patient and being persistent, and also being a leader for the younger writers in center field so that they get an understanding of the process, and that it does take time for certain stories, because that's just how it works. And you would want it to be hyper quick, but that shit isn't how it is. So you just have to go with what you get, and being that type of voice will be very exciting for me to help the young writers and be on the leadership team.
Gotcha. Now switching gears a little bit, Dan, you've been studying abroad this past semester in Italy, but you already have a semester under your belt in the big chair as the editor-in-chief. What are you most looking forward to now that you're about to return to that role?
Well, I can tell you what I'm not looking forward to, and that's working with Marley. I'm kidding. I'll tell you one thing. I love being here. First off, hi everyone, I'm back. I'll be. This center field will be my life again. That's what it was the fall semester, and Luke can attest to this. Once you kind of get in the chair, it's kind of your life. It's almost like a full-time job, even if you don't want it to be. But I was really nervous, kind of going away. I've had a lot of conversations with people if going abroad would be worth it for me personally, and when there's so much work to be done. But honestly, I come back and I'm more motivated than I ever have been. I come back knowing that I left the entire board in good hands. Luke deserves all the credit in the world for spearheading this on his own, because I'm gonna have to do it in the spring. And it's something I'm not thrilled about, because we work so well together, Luke, but it's a challenge I'm ready for. Not only that, but it was almost a gamble. When Luke and I sat down and we said, look, we have to assemble a new editor board. We have no idea how this is going to look. We haven't led before, but we're going to go ahead and see how it works. And it worked out. I mean, we got Marley in a brand new role that you're more than ready to tackle. We put Danny in a brand new role, and he did the same exact thing. He really went above and beyond with how he tackled that. We had Sam Murphy right on our side, kind of helping that center field Marist Circle collaboration. I think we really got that into full swing. I think this semester specifically, the fact that our multimedia department has just been growing exponentially. I'm ready to work with kind of the community that you and I have created, Luke. I think it's really cool to see something, that was just an idea. We sat in a pizzeria in Rhinebeck in the last spring thinking about this, and now it's really in fruition. And that's really cool. This is only just the beginning. I know that's really cliche, and Leander would not be happy for me for me saying that, but it really is just the beginning. We have so much running room. We have the ground floor done, and now we're we're gonna assemble it like Dyson. You know what I mean? It's just so much room to work with.
Let's just hope it doesn't cost $60 million like Dyson is. But you kind of just hinted at it. But for those who don't know, for the first time, we've actually assembled an entirely separate multimedia staff that is separate of our editorial staff. And they will now be having their own designated meetings, similar to how the editors have been having their own designated meetings for years. So that really the editorial department and then the visual content department, so that's video, graphics, social media, can kind of work separately from one another since that side of it has really just swelled. So Dan, I guess I wanted you to just talk a little bit about the vision for that and what you're hoping to see from that group this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird when you think about how this is branched out. When, you know, freshman year we were here and it was a gathering, but it was a really productive gathering, and now it feels like we're running a company. But it's good when you get organized. I think with just even in the last 3 years we've been here, the role social media has taken on journalism itself is so important that if we didn't, you know, adapt, we'd be a fossil, you know. So creating a multimedia department is, I think, the reason why the website has gotten so many views. I mean, that's just, you know, common association. It makes sense. We're almost at 1,000 followers on our Instagram. We hit almost 73,000 views on our website, and it's just, now that we have our own department of people that are really, you know, passionate graphic designers, video creators. You know, we snag some people from MCTV, Red Fox Report, that can really produce for us as well. One thing I'm looking forward to is production on the podcast, man. I've been itching to get back. You know, the relay throw, stay tuned. Season, I don't even know what season we're on, 3 now. I've been so lost, but we have a whole production team ready to make graphics for every article. We have a whole production team ready to produce content for the podcast. And then, you know, all this miscellaneous stuff we've done with, you know, Bleeds' volleyball video, you know, my race walk video that I finally got to. Just all this other fun content that really shows what it's like to be a sports comm student, but also a journalist at Centerfield. So I don't know about you. I'm ecstatic. So.
I am as well. So as we wrap up here, I kind of wanted to just go around the horn and in a few sentences, each just talk about what our primary goals are personally, just for this semester coming up, because it's going to definitely be a big semester for us. And I'll kind of go first. Definitely, you know, this is my last semester coming up at Marist. So definitely want to go out on a strong note, you know, just personally really looking to do a lot of feature writing. And I think taking 2 Leander classes at once is certainly going to allow me to really dive more into that realm and focus on that, as is having both of you here as well to kind of divide and conquer many of the executive responsibilities with. But just before I graduate, I feel like I'm also really looking to kind of take certain things that we've started and really continue to progress them. I think case in point, you know, a year ago, you know, graphics for us were almost like a special treat. It was not an expectation that we were going to have some sort of graphic created for every sort of piece of content that went up on the site. Now it's kind of become the norm to have final score graphics for most, if not all, of our gamers that go up. And so I think this year, when you're looking to evolve something like that, for example, maybe it's now coming up with templates that are more cohesive and consistent across the board, no matter who the graphic artist is or something like that. And so I'm really just looking forward to taking the next step in a bunch of different realms in that way this year. Marley, did you have any goals specifically for this upcoming semester?
Yeah, for me personally, a lot of the writing I've been doing is game related, and something I would like to do more is some more feature writing. Like you mentioned, I think those are the pieces that are the most interesting, that are most important to the audience. And that's also for me growing my portfolio, writing more feature pieces, more in-depth pieces about different players, coaches, and whatnot would help me in my future career as a journalist, not just focusing on what happens on the field or the court or the pool, but what happens off of that and the humanization of the athletes and coaches in Marist athletics.
And then Dan?
Yeah, well, first off, both of you, great goals. It's been a pleasure getting to see your writing develop, as well as try to develop my own. Marley, first off, when we put you in this beat role. We put all our faith in you, and it paid off successfully. You're, fully immersed beat writer, and it's an honor getting to edit and read your content. And then Luke, man, I can't believe it's your last semester. I don't even want to think about it. Let's not think about it because we have the whole summer. But yeah, Luke, I'm always mesmerized by your ability to, get a good interview and get really good quotes for impactful stories. For myself, I'm going to divide this into two parts. Fall semester, I think I'm the luckiest beat reporter alive that I have a new coach for a football team that hasn't had a coach change in 30 years. So I really want to hammer this beat down. Obviously it's the PFL. We've talked about this on the podcast before. It's the PFL. It's a low-level football, but this is still a Division I program that's going through a lot of changes, and there's a lot of impactful stories. I want to cover it as much as possible. I'm going to be here in the summer. Maybe I can, get on field while they're doing some practice and interview coaches and whatnot. I want to just run away with this beat and do as much as I can with it for my last beat. Podcast that's a year-long thing. We're going to get more consistent episodes on trying to do bi-weekly. That's the goal. Because we have so many people that are available, it's not a one-person task. It's really a group effort. So we'll get everyone on and have content on the socials. And in the spring, it's that feature writing. Taking Leander's sports feature writing last fall was super impactful for how I approach a feature, how I approach, doing interviews and whatnot. And I wrote my best features last semester. I really got creative with them. It was super cool to learn. So I just want to keep expanding on that because, like what both of you said, it's the story beyond the game that matters the most, and I think we've all learned that.
Alrighty, well, enjoy your summer. In the meantime, Dan, Marley, I'll see you guys in the fall. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I'll be around the block. See you guys.
See ya. Good to see you.